We are on the morning break on the fourth day of questioning of the undercover police officer Carlo Soracchi, who, using the cover name Carlo Neri, infiltrated the Socialist Party, No Platform, Anti-Fascist Network, and a number of other groups. He deceived 3 women into intimate sexual personal relationships. We heard from 2 of those, Lindsay and Donna McLean, last week. This morning, we've just had the conclusion of the pre-written questions for Carlo Soracchi. It has been remarkably explosive. I'm going to start with just the very last thing that was said. David Barr said, "My learned friends can object if they want, but is your evidence that your legal advisors told you to lie?"
I mean, the adjective that best describes this afternoon is awkward.
yeah. This morning, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I mean,
some people might recognize the thing that's on my T-shirt. If you do get the reference, I mean, like, get David Barr on smack, okay? I mean, like, if nobody else will get that reference, if you do understand it, you'll know exactly what I mean. I'm not going to explain it for anybody.
No, I'm not even going to go there. Yeah, so essentially what we've seen is they've gone through all of the investigation process of Soracchi. So when it came out, when the undercover policing scandal started to emerge, we now know that a lot of these officers were called in and they were interviewed. They were interviewed by risk assessors, they were interviewed by welfare officers, they were interviewed by Operation Hearn, which is ostensibly a criminal investigation, a police investigation into whether there was wrongdoing. And we were shown the notes from the interviews that Soracchi gave at various stages of potential disciplinary processes, in which he lied through his teeth.
Barefaced lies, yes. In the words of David Barr.
Indeed.
Something which he tried to suggest wasn't the case, but once we had, I think by the 4th or 5th, his head was dropping. He was like, yes, it's a barefaced lie.
I mean, he repeated the phrase, "It was just an informal chat." Over and over again. Yes. And I think this is something that we've seen with quite a few of the Hearn interviews, that they were called in by other police officers. It was the police investigating the police. And I think they said, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, this ain't going to go anywhere, don't you worry.
And there was comfy chairs. He mentioned the quality of the chair a few times.
Yes, and they all sat around in a circle and just had a chat. And he didn't even realise they were taking notes. And this, we've seen this kind of over and over again. The tone of some of the interviewing of Bob Lambert, for example, around the Debenhams stuff, is very much like, "Come on, mate, just give us another name and we can let this go."
Chummy as it goes.
Yeah. So I think Carlo was now being faced with the reality that this interview under caution hadn't been the chummy chat that he felt it was, and he was having to answer for his life. It was, for anybody who feels even slightly hard done by these officers, it was an enjoyable morning.
Yes, absolutely. As well as being joined by Kate Wilson, I'm also off screen have Lindsay, who have you had an enjoyable morning?
Oh, let me think. It was bliss. And I've seen Barr on good form before, but that was like, my mind kept casting back to watching Witness for the Prosecution when I was a child, and Charles Lawton, delivering the, it was the best of lawyering, really. And so he was really flapping. He found it really. He still tried to row back on so many occasions, though. He didn't just go, "Okay, game's up," he did try to, excuse even what his lies to Operation Hearn, and then he blamed the Police Federation for giving him the wrong information.
Yeah.
Told him just to lie. He said and we'll deal with it later.
What was amazing when it was pointed out to him that he'd lied, and he said, "Oh well, the Police Federation advised me to do this. I thought it was the beginning of a longer process, and I've improved right on that." I'm like, "Oh well, good idea."
Bit of a laugh from the public gallery at that point. Yeah. But just to say, just those documents that were produced during the Hearn interview. I mean, he's continuing with these outrageous accusations against activists. Displaying just an enormous amount of sexism. You can imagine that, you know, this cozy circular chat in the room, you know, huge amounts of sexism, saying that, you know, loads of people wanted to have relationships with him, and he just brushed all of these people off, and then casting aspersions on other weary women and their sexual morals, and his being far superior.
I mean, that was a particularly grotesque line. We saw it in the notes that he said that, you know, the Weary's morals are not our morals. I might have lied, I might have gone over the side, but I felt bad about it every day. They wouldn't give a fuck about lying.
I mean, I think this is, you know, I agreed wholeheartedly with the statement, the Weary's morals are not our morals. You know, I never would have had 3 different affairs whilst lying to my wife. And you know, that we see that over and over again with the SDS. I mean, it is, you know, I absolutely stand fast by the fact that my morals are very different from theirs. But yeah, there was, I mean, the language that was used in that informal chat with Hearn was quite disgusting. And I mean, he flapped around trying to claim that maybe this wasn't his language, maybe this was the language of the people who'd been writing the notes. And all he managed to do was basically confirm that this was acceptable language right across Special Branch. It wasn't, you know, just a couple of individuals within the SDS. Like, this was, you know, the idea that, I mean, he said things like, you know, a certain person was very interested in me, but I didn't touch it.
That was Hannah Sell. I mean, you know, like the idea, like the very idea. I mean, like,
I know. It's. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, and there were other points. Like, there was a point when he was put on the spot about his denials at the disciplinary hearing. The accusation was actually read out word for word several times, and it was that you had relationships with 3 females during the course of your undercover deployment without the knowledge of your line managers. And there was a kind of moment where I thought that he was going to turn around and say that his denial of this was on the basis that he'd done it with the knowledge of his line managers. And I suspect that is the case. I suspect that might be why he was advised to deny this, is because actually his line managers knew exactly what was going on. It seems difficult to see how they wouldn't, given things like your trip to Venice, where his managers were present, and it was just a, you know, we've established firmly that it was just a romantic trip to Venice. And I think there is this kind of, I'm almost impressed with the ability that these cops have, and I wonder what is being held over them that they will not cross. You know, they will not cross up their managers. He's holding the line on that, and I find it inconceivable that the managers of these units were not aware. This went on for so long. There's so many officers. There's so many relationships. They were so intense. They were paying rent to these people. Like, it's I found it really interesting that there were a few kind of hesitant moments, but he held the line and said, no, my managers didn't know.
It was, I mean, I was very telling, I thought, that in the operation, the first of the Operation View, Operation Hearn, like, interviews, or the cozy chats in comfy chairs, as he insists on referring to them, as he said, he met a woman in a pub, and none of it was like after my marriage had fallen apart, towards the end of my deployment. But then he gave examples of women who who'd fancied him, who'd wanted to have relations with him. And he names Lindsay and Donna, and like, kind of, you know, like, says, they wanted to, but nothing happened. And like, it's almost like he didn't have the imagination to make up anything too much. So he just used things that did happen, then just claimed that it didn't. I mean, it was very strange and stupid.
And then he's saying that, you know, I don't remember saying that. You know, that must have been Hearn officers just kind of like reading something. Yeah, making a read. But, you know, these are very specific things, in quotes, some of them, you know, from the Hearn law. So they might have done some embroidering. I don't know. They might have done some misinterpretation, but certainly not everything in the document.
So, I mean, the way that it worked was supposedly that the Operation Hearn interviewing officers were only making scribbled notes, shorthand little notes on small pads, and then writing it up afterwards. But the 2 officers who were doing it separately. And so we have 2 documents. And these 2 documents include lots of the same phrases. Identical phrases that suggest, with little extras in different ones, which suggests that he definitely said these things. Absolutely. Because 2 separate officers, you know, and it's done in a way that's supposedly so that they can be put together, and you can go, well, this was definitely said because two men have remembered it,
Absolutely.
without the pressure of them writing these notes in front of someone
Yeah.
in order to get them to speak more freely and feel it's a chat.
Yeah.
Another thing that came up was about HN67, Alan Bond, known as Bondy. The undercover officer who is believed fathered a child whilst he was deployed undercover. And he says that he heard this in a leaving do in 2006. And it was considered highly amusing. There was much merriment about it. Everybody laughed about it. And I think Barr did a very good job of just kind of like that classic thing when someone makes an inappropriate joke. It's just like, explain what's funny about it. So what is funny about it?
Yeah.
And he kept coming back to us. So where's the humor? What's funny?
Yeah.
And I mean, apart from the fact that people didn't really like Alan Bond, the fact that an undercover officer is surnamed Bond, I mean, as well. I mean, like, obviously they chose these names. You know, I mean, like, there is a suggestion actually that Alan Bond is his real name, and it was his first name that he changed. But anyway, that's another story.
Okay.
But like, but you know, this incident of you know, that an undercover officer fathering a child undercover was of great amusement to the unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Barr, as you say, Barr picked it apart. Which didn't translate very well into merriment as Carlo said it did. And yeah, I mean, it was just so embarrassing that part for him, because he just kept saying, you know, Barr was saying, so explain the merriment. Well, they were laughing, you know. It just went straight to like, I'm just going to say nonsensical things because I really don't know how to explain this. So yeah, he tried to say that HN67 wasn't liked, and that's why some of this stuff was being said. But yeah, I mean, under any scrutiny, not even the close scrutiny that Barr gave it, that cannot be, defended.
Indefensible, completely indefensible. What was particularly funny was he said to him, at these social gatherings, would talk of sexual activity with activists by undercover officers be a topic of conversation? He said, oh, we didn't have many socials of this type. Like step
away all the time, constant. Yeah. No go.
What I found interesting about that exchange was at one point Barr asked, you know, well, who was there? Were the managers there? Were the higher ranking officers there? And he tried to claim that he didn't remember, but actually in one of his other interviews about this point, he says, you know, as a more junior officer, I kind of took it on board. And I mean, Barr didn't really dig into that, but it's like, well, if you know, he was kind of saying that, claiming that, thinking like I was a junior officer because I just started my deployment, and Barr pointed out that he hadn't just started his deployment.
It was right at the end. Yeah.
What I understood about that was, as a more junior officer, meant that other officers there were ranking officers, and that this whole merriment about the possibility that somebody had fathered a child was actually among a group of people, several of whom went quite high up the chain. And yeah, I think that, you know, we've got the managers coming up in June, and
June and July. Yes,
it's
really interesting. I can't wait for that, you know, because I mean, I'm not quite sure the current state of knowledge about HN67's child. I thought like everyone was denying that.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of denials about it. It claimed it was gossip. It was a rumor.
Denials from officers or rank, like low ranking officers, higher ranking officers, both.
A mixture.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there was. It's been brought up a few times. Certainly, we have no details about it. It's one of these things we don't know enough about yet.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Frustrating. We have had some comments and some questions. If you are able to, if you've got any questions or want to make any comments, please do. Please like and share this video. It makes a huge difference to how many people watch it. Someone from the Campaigning Opposing Police Surveillance. The catalogue of lies Soracchi told to Operation Hearn and under oath in his disciplinary investigation emphasises what you said in the preview this morning. The inquiry's closed sessions are bullshit, because if they only ask coppers what they did and we don't get to see and challenge the lies, then they will prevail and the inquiry becomes pointless. I think this is really key.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure whether this person from COPS is referring to this particular closed session. This is to respect the anonymity of one of the women he deceived into relationships.
Well, certainly part of it will be, but we don't know what will happen in the closed session in its entirety. There may be other, I mean, we've had reference that, that could be dealt with in the closed. on at least one occasion during this week. And often these closed sessions, it's not just one topic. I mean, we really saw with Jim Boyling when they were, we had a lot which was semi-closed. We were allowed to be in the room, but we weren't allowed to report on it. The topics went all over the place. Lots of topics that could have been held in open were held in the closed because it was just easier. It was related topics. It fitted in with Barr's style of jumping between topics and pivoting.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Look what's just come before this closed session. You know what I mean? He has no credibility. He has none. Because also, you know, he was trying to in when he was being questioned by Barr. It was kind of lucky that Barr gave very full questions and reminded them what his previous evidence had been over these 4 days, because he looked almost like, oh, okay. Oh, so I said that. All right. Okay. They'll have a better embroider on that a little bit. You know, it's just basically any kind of blah is coming out of his fucking mouth at the moment, you know, to try and avoid further scrutiny. So his credibility will have gone. He'll be under pressure because the woman he deceived into a relationship, and this is what some of it is about, will be in the room, and so he'll be under extra pressure because she'll be there and in his eye line, and all the rest of the lawyers will have gone. I just think whatever he says now really is going to be taken with a massive sort of mountain of salt. So, do you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to say, I wanted to go back to what Mitting said at the end of your evidence hearing, because this whole issue of closed evidence, I think, has, in the light of that, suddenly become a really big deal. It's funny, just the night before your hearing, I was talking to somebody about the final report and what would be in the final report, and I said, you know, I think they're going to try and say that the stuff enclosed justifies the policing, even though we've seen such a heavy weight of evidence about how awful this was. The stuff that we're not seeing justifies it. And I think we have to keep making the point that there's plenty of stuff in the police evidence that they've presented to these open hearings that, taken at face value, could also have justified the undercover policing. And, you know, we've got the James Thompson gun running from France and murder plot. We've got the arrests around the Debenhams arsons. You know, we've got like a whole, I mean, though, you know, those are the two that really stand out, but there's, you know, significant, all of the petty little reports about people's tendencies to violence that, you know, without the evidence of people other than the police looking at these documents and saying, well, that's bullshit, and providing the evidence to the contrary, and without the cross-examination based on the information that we're able to give the inquiry, just on the face of the documents that the police provided, of course it looked justified. You know, the whole purpose of SDS back office seems to have been to write reports that justified the existence of the unit. So unless people are actually able to look at those reports, they're worthless. You know, the weight of rebuttal that everything that has been put out into the public domain has received makes anything that is not subjected to scrutiny by the people who were involved completely worthless. And I think we need to keep making that point, because it definitely sounded like Mitting was taking on trust some of the stuff that they've heard in closed evidence. I mean, I would like to know whether they are hearing closed evidence from civilians, for example, from the far right. You know, we know that they're redacting everything about spying on the far right, and they may well be using that.
I mean, that's not entirely. We have had an undercover officer who did infiltrate the far right. It was just a very shallow swimmer.
Yes.
I mean, 3-month deployment. And there was a suggestion that some of the other reporting on the far right was much deeper. Now, did that include deceptive sexual relationships?
Well, exactly. And I mean, also, it needs to be shown to the members of those groups so that they can come back and say, well, you know, that's bullshit. I mean, I have no sympathy with the politics of the far right, but that doesn't mean that what the police have said about them in their reporting is true.
Quite. And also, I mean, like we also know that many of the women who were deceived in sexual relationships by undercover officers in the far left were not people who were necessarily that involved in the politics. So, I mean, maybe the case that women who were deceived by far right officers in the far right. Exactly. Yeah. We've had a couple more comments. Just first from Jack Shepherd, who I will reveal is Chris Bryan of the Undercover Research Group. Did your legal representative advise you to lie? I'm pretty sure his police fed told him to say nothing. I mean,
The question that wasn't asked about that I would have liked to hear the answer to, but I guess comes under legal professional privilege, is did you tell your police federation representative that the accusations were true?
right, yeah, absolutely.
You know, was there advice based on knowing? Because I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he could say, well, you know, my police federation representative didn't tell me to lie because he didn't know that what I was saying was a lie. But you know, that I guess Barr's not going to go there because that's privileged legal advice.
And Chris follows up with, Soracchi's evidence is the best advertisement for a no comment interview ever, which I think is very true. Very true indeed. There's also a follow-up here from someone from the campaign opposing police surveillance. To clarify, it's damning about the closed sessions that protect the privacy of officers whose misconduct is the subject of the inquiry, not the ones to protect civilians. Yeah, absolutely. Though I would say that the inquiry does fudge very often those two different concerns into one and like tries to make out it's all part of the same thing, but it very much isn't. We've got 89 people watching, only 3 have liked. It makes a huge difference if you can like or share this broadcast. Please do if you're able to.
Please do. It's easy.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what else to say. I mean, you know, it's a lot of it's been said.
Yeah, I mean, we are currently, the closed session is probably ongoing now. We don't know how long that's going to take. Once it's completed, there will be Rule 10 questions.
Yeah,
I'm expecting an absolute shed load of Rule 10s to be presented to Barr for his consideration. Generally, Barr doesn't do that many Rule 10 questions. He always takes there's a very high standard required for something which he feels he hasn't covered enough to be revisited. I get the impression that throughout the week he has gone back to certain topics to make sure he feels he's covered them as much as he wants to. So though there are probably a huge number of questions that are being put forward, I don't know how many of them will end up being asked. Is there anything particularly that any of you think should be asked?
I mean, there's
so much. There's so much. Yeah, quite.
No, there's hopefully this will be brought up. This has gone in from Cat H. So yeah, it's his social media posting. So after he'd actually, I think before he had gone through that second round of interviewing by Hearn. So that was after the stuff about Donna McLean came out. Donna McLean, sorry. That was the second lot of Hearn interviews just after that came into the media. And he had social media posts from before then and around that time, which basically were his so he obviously made up a bullshit name, but his screen characters, his you know, the pictures he's chosen to use were of TV and film characters who had feigned mental illness, basically to get out of duties. So, and he actually says in one of his on his Instagram thing, I went Wibble years ago. You know, Wibble from Blackadder Goes Forth, where he, you know, sticks a couple of pencils up his nose and puts his undies on his head and basically says, I can't go over the top. And he uses that picture actually of from Blackadder Goes Forth as one of his Facebook pages. So yeah, I mean, I hope that'll be brought up because it does show that basically he was not taking any of this shit seriously in any way, despite the, oh, poor me, you know, I've had a really awful time and everything, my life was in tatters and it all fell apart. You know, he's taking the piss. He's basically still taking the piss. And I think, you know, what he did with certainly with Donna McLean was feign a breakdown and you know, and took her entirely, took her along with that and all the stress and empathy that she had to put into, you know, that fake breakdown, you know. So yeah, hopefully that comes out because it might just show, not that it needs to be shown now because he's got no credibility left, but you know, it might just show that actually he was taking all of that as an incredible joke, you know, when he was actually really damaging members of the public in the process.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I think I found it amusing this afternoon when they were talking about, he was kind of saying, well, you know, I lied to her and I lied to the disciplinary because I thought it was part of a longer process. And then there was a kind of, I wish it had taken a bit less than 9 years.
I mean, it's actually been 10, which I know, you know, but yeah.
But this question of
It's actually been 14 since his first set of lies to Operation Herne.
Yeah, but how much it has been weighing on him recently that he was going to have to sit there and give evidence about all these lies that he'd told that were now completely provably untrue. I liked that. I felt that yes, and I think he's as Jack Shepherd said, best argument ever for a no comment interview.
It's also, I mean, I think it's a real message to any of the former undercover managers and the remaining officers who are due to give evidence before the end of this particular phase who are watching, because I know many of you do watch these videos. I've been informed that, you know, when you do come to give evidence, it's a great opportunity for you to absolve yourself by just literally telling the truth. If once you actually are on that stand and being questioned by Barr, you know, you can stop yourself looking like a complete fucking idiot and a moral sewer by just going, I was a younger man, I was appalling. I am now, as an adult, as an older man, going to actually set the record straight and give a full and honest answer to these questions.
Don't tell them entirely what to say. Sitting scribbling
But
that right now.
Honestly, it surprises me how few of them have done that. You know, and I think it speaks to the utter moral depravity of the Metropolitan Police in general and Special Branch in particular, that almost nobody has done that.
No.
And these expressions of regret are just words. They're just words.
Yeah. And there's the apologies are mealy mouthed, and you know what we're seeing is anger. Anger above all that they are there, that they are being asked these questions, and you know, like when all this spy cop stuff started, I expected there to be potentially a bit more of a societal debate about the appropriateness of this and about whether, you know, we had deserved it, and you know, I was struck by how, you know, right across the board, you know, from the Guardian to the Daily Mail, everyone was just like, this is disgusting, it's outrageous, this is morally depraved, and yet these police officers still come and take the stand and double down or obfuscate, and like nobody really, I mean, not even Peter Francis really stood there and said, of course I remember. This is among the most significant things that have ever happened in my life. Of course I remember this stuff, and this is what happened. And yeah, it was wrong.
Can I just add to that? I mean, one thing Alison says, which I'm totally agree with, is it's not necessarily the public who they are refusing to admit this to. It's their friends, it's their current partners, the people who they've told these lies to over many years. I mean, imagine the row and back if now they actually admit the opposite is true. So yeah. It's layered.
But I mean, I think, you know, it bears repeating. The truth can set you free. You know, you can be reborn into salvation, comrades. You know what I mean? Like, just fucking come out with the honest truth. You know, and like, though you may be still lying right to this very moment to those people around you, you know, you have an opportunity to set the record straight, and it will be worth it in the end.
I'll second that.
We are going to go back in for the Rule 10s. Not sure when it'll be. Not sure how long the closed session is going to take. We never get much in the way of direction from the inquiry, but we will rejoin you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Thanks for joining us. Please share, like all these broadcasts. We'll be doing another video after the Rule 10s. Probably be around lunchtime. Might be a bit later. Who knows? But please join us then. And if you've got any questions, please add them in the comments. Bye for now.